My name is Aaron Mitchell. I was born and raised in a small town in Michigan, where winters were long and summers came like a sigh of relief. My family wasn't rich. We were barely scraping by most of the time. My dad worked in a local car parts factory, and my mom cleaned houses for a living. I learned young that if you wanted anything in life, you had to earn it with your own blood, sweat, and tears. I wasn't a star athlete. I wasn't some math genius either. I was just decent. I did okay in school, had a few friends, worked part-time jobs to help out at home, and kept my head down. I figured life would reward hard work eventually. And for a little while, I thought I'd found my reward. Her name was Clarissa. Clarissa Andrews was everything I'd never had in my life. She was light where I'd lived in shadows. Her hair was the color of maple syrup, and her laugh, it was like summer. Warm and intoxicating. She came from a family that owned 3 car dealerships and a construction company. They weren't billionaires, but they were upper class in a town like ours. Her father drove a new Lexus every year. Mine drove a dented '97 Civic with no air conditioning. Clarissa and I met in our senior year of high school. She was way out of my league, and everyone knew it, including me. But one day, I helped her pick up her books after a football player knocked them over in the hallway, and I guess something about the way I said sorry made her look at me twice. She said yes when I asked her to prom. She kissed me after. And suddenly, we were a thing. For 3 years. I loved her with everything I had. Every single thing. I gave her my time, my affection, my attention, and whatever money I could spare. We went to the local community college together. I took up 2 part-time jobs, bartending at night and doing warehouse shifts during weekends, while she took courses in marketing and fashion. I had a dream. I wanted to save enough money to move us both to New York. She could chase her fashion dreams, and I could work my way up in the food service industry. I even secretly enrolled in a culinary course, just to make something of myself. But that dream turned into a nightmare. It started subtly. She started coming home later. Told me she was studying or meeting with friends. Her texts were shorter, her kisses more distracted. She began comparing me to others. She said things like, "I just wish you had a little more ambition, or maybe you should work on yourself more if we're going to build a future together." I ignored the red flags. Because I was afraid. One night, we went to this rooftop party hosted by a guy named Chase Langford. His father was some big real estate mogul. Chase was handsome, rich, and arrogant. The kind of guy who wore $500 shoes to a barbecue. I noticed the way he looked at her. More than that, I noticed the way she looked back. She laughed too loudly at his jokes. Touched his arm too often. And that night, when we went home, she didn't say a word to me. She just showered, climbed into bed, and turned her back. I knew something had changed. A week later, she ended it. We were sitting at our favorite diner. The same booth where we used to talk about our dreams. She looked different, colder. Like she'd rehearsed this 1,000 times. "Aaron, I just don't think this is working anymore," she said. Her voice was too calm. "You're sweet, and I'll always care about you. But I need something more. Stability. Growth. Someone who can challenge me." I didn't speak. I couldn't. My mouth was dry. My hands trembled. I finally asked, "Is it Chase?" She didn't answer. But her silence screamed yes. I left the diner without finishing my coffee. I walked all the way home. And when I got there, I packed my things, left the apartment we shared, and disappeared into the night like a ghost. I didn't call her again. I didn't beg. I didn't scream. I just vanished. And the silence became my companion. For the next few years, I buried myself in work. I left town and moved to Chicago, slept on a friend's couch, and got a job washing dishes at a small Italian restaurant. I kept my head down, said little, worked late, and never missed a shift. Pain makes you quiet. Grief makes you obedient. But fire makes you hungry. One day, the head chef got into an argument with the owner and stormed out. There was a line out the door and no one to cook. I stepped in. They were hesitant at first. After all, I was just the dishwasher, but I had been studying recipes every night in secret. I had been watching the chefs like a hawk. That night, I cooked for 47 customers. No one complained. By the end of the week, I was promoted. From there, things started to change. I saved up and took more courses. Got certified. Bounced from one kitchen to the next, learning from the best I could afford. I started creating my own menus, developing my own flavors, pitching ideas to investors. By the age of 29, I had co-founded a small upscale restaurant with a retired chef who believed in me. We called it Ember and Stone. It was elegant, modern, and everything I dreamed of. But even as the restaurant got good reviews, as tables filled up, and as awards came trickling in, Clarissa stayed in the back of my mind like a wound that never fully healed. I never followed her online. Never stalked her Instagram. I didn't need to. I could imagine the life she'd chosen. Luxury condos. Brunches in Manhattan. Jewelry and heels and pool parties. She probably didn't remember me anymore. Or maybe she did, briefly, in moments of nostalgia, like a faded Polaroid from a simpler time. Until the day she walked into my restaurant. It was a quiet Wednesday evening when the reservation came in. Langford, party of 4. I didn't think anything of it until I walked past the front tables to greet a couple of VIP guests and saw her. Clarissa. She looked older, but in the way that money makes people look polished. Her hair was styled in loose curls. Her lips were painted a deep plum color. And her eyes, they were exactly the same. Beside her was Chase Langford, the man she'd chosen. They were seated at table 12, right under the exposed brick wall with a custom art piece I'd personally designed. I stood frozen for a second. My heart clenched in a way I hadn't felt in years. Memories came flooding in, her smile, her betrayal, the pain, the silence. I could have turned away. Sent someone else to wait on them. But I didn't. I grabbed the wine list and walked straight to their table. "Good evening," I said, my voice calm, steady. "I'll be your server tonight." Clarissa's head turned slowly toward me. Her eyes widened. She blinked, once, twice, and then whispered, "Aaron?" I smiled gently. Polite. Detached. "Welcome to Ember and Stone." Her face went pale. Chase looked confused. "Do you two know each other?" Clarissa laughed nervously. "Just an old friend from college." I nodded, still holding the wine list. "Would you like to hear the chef's specials tonight?" I asked. I watched her squirm. Her hands fiddled with her napkin. She avoided eye contact. That night, I served her table with flawless precision. I poured the wine with care. Refilled their water glasses before they asked. Recommended the sea base, her old favorite. I even brought out the dessert myself. A lavender honey tart with a burnt sugar crust. Her eyes welled up when she saw it. It was the same dessert I'd made for her the night before she left me. Except now, it was garnished with edible gold and plated on a hand-carved dish. Before they left, she lingered by the doorway, behind Chase. She turned to me and said, "You've changed." I looked her in the eye for the first time in years. "No," I said quietly. "I just became who I was meant to be." Then I turned and walked back into the kitchen, leaving her standing in the flickering candlelight, holding on to the weight of her own choices. Clarissa never came back to the restaurant after that night. But her eyes haunted me for weeks. The look she gave me, half shame, half regret, was the kind of look that stays with you long after the moment ends. I thought that would be the end of it. A chapter closed. But life doesn't work that cleanly. About 3 months later, I was hosting a charity dinner at Ember and Stone. It was a black tie affair for a local foundation that helped fund culinary education for underprivileged youth, something I cared deeply about because I once was that underprivileged kid. I had just finished speaking to the crowd when my business partner, Daniel, nudged me and whispered, "You have a guest at the bar. Says she knows you." I turned toward the bar, and there she was. Clarissa. This time, she looked different. No designer clothes. No expensive jewelry. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She wore a simple black dress and no makeup. Just her. Raw. I walked over, slowly, cautiously. "Hey," she said softly. "Can we talk?" I looked around, gestured for her to follow me into one of the private rooms we used for intimate tastings. The door closed behind us, and the room felt too quiet. "I'm not here to make things awkward," she started. I've been thinking about that night. And about us. And I needed to say something." I leaned against the wall, arms folded, waiting. "You probably hate me," she said. "And you have every right to. What I did was selfish. I knew what I was doing when I left. I knew I was hurting you." "Why?" I asked. My voice was calm, but inside I was trembling. I had waited years for this moment, and now that it was here, it felt too real. She sighed. "I was scared, Aaron. Scared of ending up poor, of struggling, of living like you did. I thought Chase could protect me from all that. I thought if I just chose comfort over love, I'd be okay. But the truth is, I wasn't." She looked down at her hands. "He cheated on me. More than once. And I let it slide because I was too afraid to leave. I didn't have a career, no real skills, and I thought, maybe this is what I deserve. I said nothing. Just listened. We're separated now. Probably heading for divorce." She looked up, eyes glossy with unshed tears. "But when I saw you that night at the restaurant, you looked whole. You looked like someone who made it. And it broke something inside me because I realized I threw away the one person who truly loved me. For what? For money that never felt like mine." I swallowed hard. "Clarissa," I said, "when you left me, it nearly destroyed me. I doubted everything about myself. My worth. My future. I thought I wasn't good enough. That I'd always be the guy who got left behind. But the thing is, you didn't break me. You set me free." She blinked, stunned. "I became a better man because of what happened. I fought for a life you never believed I could build. And now I know, real love isn't about luxury or status. It's about who stands by you when you have nothing. Who believes in you before the world does." She nodded, slowly. Her lip trembled. "I just wanted you to know / I'm sorry. Truly. For everything." There was a long silence between us. And then I said something I never thought I would. "I forgive you, Clarissa." Her shoulders sagged, like she'd been carrying guilt for years. "Thank you," she whispered. She stood up to leave, then paused at the door. "You're amazing, Aaron. I hope you know that." I smiled. "I do now." She left. And that was the last time I saw her. Months passed. Ember and Stone became one of the top-rated restaurants in the city. A second location opened downtown. I was invited to cook on a televised food competition, and I won. Not because I was the flashiest, but because I knew how to tell stories through flavor. Pain has a way of seasoning everything you do. I also started mentoring young chefs, especially those who came from broken homes or struggled financially. I wanted them to know they were more than their pasts. Just like I was. One day, I received an invitation in the mail. It was from Clarissa. It wasn't a plea or a romantic letter. It was a thank you card. Inside was a short message. Thank you for forgiving me. I've started taking classes in graphic design and working part-time at a local boutique. I'm finally building something on my own. You inspired that. Wishing you continued success and peace. Clarissa. I held the card for a long time. There was no bitterness in me. Just calm. Because here's the thing. People will hurt you. They will leave. They will make choices that rip you apart. But what defines you isn't how you fall. It's how you rise. Clarissa may have left me for a richer man. But in the end, I became rich in ways she never imagined. I had purpose, passion, peace. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't anger or spite. Sometimes, the best revenge is becoming exactly who they said you could never be. My name is Aaron Mitchell. And I didn't just survive. I became the flame that never burned out.